All right, so welcome to another Google Classroom tutorial covering how I use this feature with my students in my classroom. This section will probably end up being in 2 videos as well, I have a feeling. So how do I, post assignments or projects and have students give feedback or me give feedback? I think that's really one of the best reasons to use Google Classroom, especially if you are somebody that does not want to be carrying around tons of paperwork and shuffling it around. I have just found using before Google Classroom, I always use Google Drive, which was a little bit labor intensive in setting up in the first place. But since Google Classroom, it really has streamlined the whole process of having students submit work, share work with students, and then having them submit work and give feedback on the internet. So, what you can do, so here is my classroom, or one of my classroom pages. Um, and you can see that, I've got my notes on there, PowerPoints, questions, and things like that. I'm going to scroll fairly far down here and find. Okay, so this is one of the activities that I had students do. They had to create a want ad for symbiotic relationships. Um, I had a PDF that I shared because this is an assignment created by another teacher that kind of explains it. But then also to sometimes I find it easier, especially for projects, whether it's writing a lab or even worksheets or things like that. I mean, some people, will just scan the worksheet and, you can scan in a worksheet or, a PDF and just share it, but students can't type in it. So I recreate the document or create a template in Google Drive for them to work in. And just a little tip that's outside of Google Classroom. In Google Drive, when I do create templates for projects or worksheets or labs or activities or anything that I want students to work in online. When I'm doing that on Google Classroom, now you can do some of these things on Google Forms, like if you have a multiple choice activity or something that's a little bit more basic, you can put that into Google Forms, and there are apps that will grade those assignments for you. But if it's something, so I don't use it very much because most of the things that I have students do in class are not really those multiple choice, pick and choose kind of things. I generally do more writing and project based kind of learning. So when I'm setting up templates, I will do it in Google Classroom or excuse me, Google Drive. And this is just an example of how I would set something up. So if I want students to be able to write in something, here's a template of one of my activities. So I will, write out the whole lab or whatever it is that the assignment is, the project. And if you have something that you have stored on Microsoft Word, you can upload that into Google Drive and edit it from there. It will look different. You'll have to do some restructuring, but I will say, I mean, having access to this is just fantastic. So when I want students to write, if you just leave a blank space like this, that will kind of adjust your whole entire the whole thing that you've written out. So if you want a space for students to write in, what I find is that it's best to add a table. So once you ask a question, go to table, insert table, and just do a 1-by-1 table. Put a table inside of a table, but and it will allow students to write, and it doesn't affect the rest of the document that you have shared with them. So that being said, this is one of the lab templates that I've created for my students. And here's the thing, when you're in Google Classroom and you have, actually, I'm going to see if I can find that particular assignment. Here we go. So in this, assignment on the student's end, they're not going to see this section right here. They actually have to click on this link to open up the template. But this is great for long-term projects where you want to give students feedback. So I'm going to go into students template here. They've been working on this for quite a while. And as they were writing up their labs, and I don't think I have, they're able to work with one another. You can see, there's lots of information. And if I wanted to leave feedback, so, one thing that I'm noticing here is she is missing her labels. So I can highlight things and I can leave comments, and things like that. For those of you that are more in the language arts category or are doing a lot of proofreading, you can actually, there is the comment feature, but there also is a suggestion feature as well. So you can change, instead of leaving a comment, you can go to this editing feature and you can hit suggestions, and you can say, she should, be writing out the word 3. And that will just be an editing suggestion for them. Now, I use this, so when these students were writing out these labs in their groups, I just went into one of the students' documents in that group and I left a bunch of different comments. And then what students can do is, I'm going to see if I can find, I don't know if I can find which students exactly I've left comments in. But you can leave that feedback there, and what I've seen a lot of students do is then they just hit resolved as they fix things. And two, it makes it so much easier, especially if you're doing something that requires multiple drafts, and you really want them to have the chance to edit things and take the feedback that you give them and give feedback to each other. So, this was an assignment that went for weeks because they had to write their lab and then they had to run their lab and then they had to write a conclusion. So they just finished these up, and this one is not done. So, it is a very nice feature to be able to access this. Also, too, if you don't want to have to scroll all the way down to find an assignment that, students have done, you can access their work in a classroom folder in Drive. So here I'm in Google Drive. And you can see that there is my green classroom folder. And you can find the classroom that you're looking for. There you go. And then you can see, these are all of the different assignments that I've created this year so far for them. And I can go into the folder of the assignment that I'm looking for, and then there are all of their different assignments. And you can see some of them, customized their templates a little bit more. One thing to be aware of is some students will accidentally make another copy of the assignment. And if they make a copy of that assignment and they work in that copy as opposed to the one that you've created for them, you will not be able to see it unless they share it with you. Also, this is a struggle that I have had all year long, no matter how many times I show them or explain it. A lot of students still confuse sharing, which is, this little blue guy up here, which will go to your email and you'll say, so-and-so shared blah, blah, blah with you, versus turning something in on Google Classroom. And I actually am going to go out of this. And I'm going to go into something where I am a student, which, by the way, you can see what I'm teaching on the sidebar versus what I'm enrolled in. So if you are a student, and you have an assignment, you click on that assignment, there is, the template that they shared with me. Just like as a teacher of a class, I have templates I share with my students. If I have worked in that template or they have worked in that template, I can just simply click turn in. And that's something you have to share with them, that they need to actually go back into that assignment and turn it into you, almost like they would physically turn in a sheet of paper. If they have a copy of something or they've created their own template, they need to add that in, either if it's something that they've created outside of Google or it's on Google Drive, they need to upload that and then turn it in. So that's just a little bit of what it looks like on the student end. I know that that's something we can't necessarily show them on our end, but it definitely needs to be said about 5 million times. Another project template that I've created, here's one for that want ad that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to get a video stoppage here, but here's another one. So, and I just leave directions on, for students exactly where to type what and what they need to do. So sometimes I use these templates as something they have to use, and sometimes they're just suggestions. So that's a little bit about how I use projects. And now I'm going to get a stop.